Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. Thank you, Chief Kemper, for joining us. For the second time in as many months, we're here to address what has become a modern-day crisis, the heroin and opioid epidemic. As I've said in the past, this is not only a top law enforcement priority, but also a public health emergency. Today, we can announce that together with our partners in the New York City Police Department, we have dismantled another sizable and profitable drug distribution ring operating here in Brooklyn. We've arrested 13 people who we allege were part of this ring. An additional 5 people were arrested during the takedown, and I expect numerous additional arrests to take part in the next few days as part of this conspiracy. 4 defendants are being charged under our state's drug kingpin laws, which imposed increased penalties for those who deal in large amount of narcotics, who make a tremendous profit in a certain period of time. The investigation started with undercover purchases of large quantities of heroin. The investigation expanded to include court-ordered electronic surveillance with intercepts of phone calls and text messages. The wiretap uncovered the truly wide range of this operation. We allege that in a 3-month period beginning in January of this year, 2017, this ring distributed over 2 million glassines of heroin. At a street price of $6 to $10 per glassine, the heroin in this case had a street value as high as $20 million. Now, the alleged leader of this trafficking operation, who along with 3 others, and who is being charged under the Kingpin statute, is James Fly Williams. Avid basketball fans have heard of him. In the 1970s, he was a high school superstar and college basketball prodigy who grew up in Brownsville, Brooklyn. He led his college team to the NCAA tournament. He was later drafted after playing for 2 years in the first round in the American Basketball Association before it merged with the NBA. While his pro career was actually short, he made a name for himself as a street basketball player and local legend in Brownsville and other parts of Brooklyn. His popularity and status in the community may have ironically helped him in operating and hide this elaborate criminal enterprise. Now, what makes his alleged conduct even more unfortunate is that Fly Williams had his own well-documented battles with addiction. By his own admission, he had abused drugs for many years and had become severely addicted. Fly Williams is no stranger to the misery that addiction causes. He knows it stunts opportunities for our youth and that the misery it brings along. It destroys lives. And yet we allege that he was spreading heroin throughout Brooklyn and beyond, breeding addiction and bringing misery to others. That someone with his stature in the community, with his influence on young people, would run such a substantial narcotics operation is truly sad and reprehensible. He will now be held accountable for his actions. As the investigation developed, we set out to learn where the heroin Fly Williams is being charged for selling was coming from, who was distributing it, and where it was being sold. I'm going to refer you to the exhibit on your right-hand side. Our investigation led us right to the Bronx, a man named Richard Rivera, who we have charged with supplying heroin in bulk quantities to defendant Hansel Martinez Cintron. Cintron, who's also from the Bronx, would receive the heroin, would cut it, and would package it, and then he would then supply it to Jeffrey Britt, who was known as Doobie. Doobie, we allege, works together with Fly Williams. Together, and with the other charged kingpins, they maintained a heroin distribution ring that had far-reaching tentacles. They made both wholesale purchases and sales, and then street-level retail sales with the people down below who are street-level dealers. The network sold heroin across Brooklyn in neighborhoods of Brownsville, Bed-Stuy, Bushwick, Fort Greene, East New York, and elsewhere. It even supplied heroin to certain counties upstate New York. This was big business. We've already talked about some of the numbers, but they're called kingpins for a reason. Our investigation reveals that this trafficking ring was buying $30,000 of heroin per week and sometimes more. We allege that Fly Williams and his associates are the worst kind of drug dealers because they were selling this poison to their neighbors and others in their communities. These are our communities and our neighbors. These are our family members, and they need to be protected from the scourge of heroin. We talk a lot about the number of murders in New York City and in Brooklyn in any given year, and we should be thankful that the police department has helped drive down the numbers to near record lows. But in Brooklyn, we had almost 3 times as many overdose deaths last year as we've had homicides. Heroin kills. Opioids kill. And in a very real sense, the individuals who sell these drugs do irreparable harm to our communities. And as it is often the case for drug trafficking rings, we have collected evidence that the members of this ring were ready to use guns to protect their business. And when executing search warrants, we recovered 6 firearms, including one allegedly belonging to Fly Williams, gun right over there. These firearms were found in various locations where the drug dealers store their heroin and their money. Narcotics rings inevitably breed violence. By their very nature, they have to protect turfs, they have to protect their business, and these guns provide that protection. When arresting the members of this ring, we recovered 2 kilos of heroin, nearly 14,000 glassines of heroin, and about 185,000, a little bit over that, in United States currency. These are professionals who knew what they were doing and took steps to evade detection and law enforcement. I wanted to show you how this member hid and transported the heroin in these very realistic looking cans. These cans. They had Pringles cans. They even had this bottle of water that looks like water, but inside it's carved out so you can put the heroin so it can't be seen. And you're walking down the street, it looks like you're holding a bottle of water. Very detailed cans, had WD-40 and paint cans. This was an elaborate operation. Don't be misguided that this was simple trafficking. These were people who clearly thought about how they were going to transport drugs and evade law enforcement. In running his operation, Fly Williams kept a close, trusted team. He employed his own son, James Williams Jr., his girlfriend, Lizette Kelly, and other family members and close associates. We plan to continue to investigate and dismantle narcotics distribution rings as we have been doing increasingly over the past several months. As I've said in the past, this is but just one tool for us in our overall approach to combating the heroin and opioid crisis in New York City, and in particular Brooklyn. We recently secured funding from the City Council to launch an innovative program here in Brooklyn that diverts heroin users to drug rehabilitation centers and allows for dismissal of their cases if they meaningfully participate in drug treatment programs to combat their addiction. I'm grateful for that funding, and I'm looking forward to getting that started later this year. This approach of addressing both the supply and the demand for these very dangerous drugs should go a long way in reducing the spike of users and the overdoses in Brooklyn. That is our goal. I want to thank the hardworking members and relentless detectives of the New York City Police Department who brought us this case, and the investigators and prosecutors and other staff members here who helped build it. This is a successful investigation done in a very short period of time, and the results speak for themselves. This is a tremendous operation that we dismantled in Brooklyn.